I'm Naomi. Thanks for being here. 6 Things DevOps Wants from InfoSec. This will be a little bit like marriage counseling. If you are in DevOps, you're going to be happy about this because you're on the good side. You're on the good side of the couch. And the psychologist, whoever it is, they're like, oh, I agree with you. I agree with you. InfoSec folks, you're not going to like this as much. You're going to be like, wait, what's going on right now? I feel attacked. You are going to be attacked. Just you wait. You're going to be attacked for the next 45 minutes. I hope you're ready. All right, picture this. You are a rock star developer. You're part of a team that is similarly skilled, butt-kicking, code ninjas, and you are here making the world a better place. You're writing awesome code, bespoke, industry, disruptive software that's going to change the world, and you are days, weeks from release, and you hand off your beautiful love child baby to the security team for testing. You guys know this, right? You hand it off for testing? What? We got hecklers? Oh, your baby's ugly. Go ahead and heckle, man. I got this. You can heckle all day. I'm good with it. All right, you hand off your beautiful application love child, and then you get some sort of report that comes back. Bam! It's a 30-page report from the security team. Vulnerabilities out the holes, all the holes. Right? And you're like, what is this? My beautiful love child has turned into a tantruming, crying, wailing toddler in need of a nap. And you're just here thinking, wow, I hate those security guys and girls. Security is not good for us. We are mad, right? You are mad as a developer. You just spent weeks, months, years. Oh my God, I hate this. I'm sorry, that noise is killing me. I love it. All right. So you're in a hard place right now because you want to release this code on time because the business is counting on you to bring in money, yes? You are building this thing for them, and if you don't release it on time, they're going to be mad. And maybe you'll lose your job, who knows. But you also know with the 30-page report, there's probably some security flaws in there, some vulnerabilities in your application, and you probably shouldn't do that either. So you're stuck. You're in between a rock and a hard place, yes? So what do? Well, if you're a security person, you're going to push for those fixes, and you, as a developer, is going to push against them. You're like, no, I'm going to push back and say, I want to release on time because I want a job. I want to be able to eat, feed my family. That would be nice. Be good to eat. Yes, I haven't eaten today. Can you guys tell? I'm about to pass out. All right. But this is you. You're one of these guys, and the security team's the other one. But what I'm saying is security and DevOps, we don't have to be like that. We don't have to be those two butting heads, those rams up there. We can be on their team. We can shake hands. We can make friends, and this is how we're going to do it. Really quick about me. Again, I'm Naomi. This is what I look like. I'm the Director of Product Security at Contrast. Yes, I work for a vendor. But I actually do like our vendor. Our products are actually pretty cool. We do runtime application security, Contrast. One of our founders was the founder of OWASP. I have 23 years in IT and security, and I've done everything from actually development. So I was a developer for a number of years, 7 years total, full stack development. And I moved from there into application security, security engineering, security architecture, and a little bit about security executive leadership. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, by the way. I have a couple of master's degrees and a bachelor of engineering and computer engineering. Anyway, that's about me. Here we go, 6 things DevOps wants from InfoSec. Again, it's a little bit like relationship counseling, a little bit like marriage counseling. Number 1, DevOps wants us to go away. Now, you probably didn't expect to see this, but I am telling you, when I sent this over to my developers as a sanity check, I said, hey, I have 6 things that I think that you want from me. Is this true? They said, well, it's almost all true, except for the first one is wrong. We just want you to go away. I was like, okay, that's great. That's awesome. Nice meeting you. Nice. Right? Actually, we're like, well, let's calm down here, Naomi. We want you to go away, but we want to do security on our own. So I said, okay, what does that mean? They're like, oh, we want to be empowered. Oh, okay, that sounds a lot better than just go away. All right. But they want to be empowered. They want to be trusted to do security. What does this mean? What does empowerment look like? And this is what they came up with. Now, this is great because when I was putting together this talk, I didn't actually have to do anything. I just sent over in Slack. I'm like, hey, can you guys give me some content so I can put this up on the slide? It was perfect. I did absolutely no work for this. This is great. This is what they told me. How to empower us. Just give us the security training, give us the tools and the integrations, give us ownership, and then get the freaking heck out of the way. Get out of my way. Let me do this thing. They want to build software. They want to build secure software. Any good developer worth his or her salt is going to want to write secure code. Yeah? They're not going to sit there and be like, I'm just going to purposely F over the security team and put in these, vulnerabilities for like the most basic injection attacks. They're going to do that if they hate you, right, Jerry? They're going to do that. They're going to do that. They're going to hate you, but they won't. Get out of our way, they said. And I said, okay, but what does security training actually mean? What are you actually talking about? What do you want? And they're like, oh, here you go, Naomi. This is what we want. Give us some examples. Now, here's a really good one about this. You give good examples. You give bad examples. Both are good. But if you want to win over the hearts and minds of security professionals, you tell them what they've done well. They freaking love that. So you say, hey, instead of just being like, oh, you did this XYZ thing wrong, but you did 100 other things right. Actually, you know what? You should lead with the 100 things first and not the XYZ things wrong. They love that. If you guys have children, I have 2 kids, they're younger here. I like to do the whole tricking them like into making them better people kind of thing. Be like, hey, you're great. You're going to do these things. You do these things well. And then I want you to work on these things next. I think it's called like a compliment sandwich. It's an HR thing. They try that. It doesn't always work with a 7-year-old, but I try it anyway. You're going to give them the good and the bad. That way, when you hit them with the bad sometimes, they're going to be like, well, I still trust them because they've built this relationship with me to tell me that I'm like a really good developer. So I'm okay with fixing the vulnerabilities that they find. I know, it's crazy. What are they doing over there? Is somebody okay? Like, are they dying? Welcome to South Dakota. Thank you, man, wearing the Idaho shirt. I love that. You're like, I represent South Dakota. I'm just going to pretend I'm on open mic night, guys. All right. So they want those examples, good and bad. They want checklists, security requirements. If you guys don't know product security or application security, get smart on it because there are so many things that have changed over the years. When I was a developer back in like 1999 to 2007, whatever it was, the tech stack has changed so much back from where just simply building software has become so freaking complicated. It is so crazy. If you guys aren't aware of how software is built today, please, 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 for the sake of your developers, they want you to know how software is built and how software actually works in the year of our Lord 2023. It is different than how it was 20 years ago, maybe when you were a developer like I was. I was a full stack Java developer, by the way, and it's different than when it is back then. Today, it's completely different, and they want you to know this. So if you give them checklists and security requirements, you can be very, very specific on what they need to know in their tech stack. If you are just being general and just say, hey, always validate your input, output, or encode your output, they're going to be like, okay, well, what does that actually mean, right? Give me specifics. Give me those specifics that I need so I can work within my tech stack, my tools, and you can integrate with my tools specifically. I would like to know that. Those checklists, security requirements will be specific enough to help your developers actually help them instead of just saying you will always validate your input. In that case, why not give us approved libraries and packages or approved regular expressions? So if I am going to be doing input validation, why not give me the regular expressions that I can validate against? Yes? Instead of just saying, oh, you're always going to validate input for malicious characters. Well, okay, well, what are the malicious characters? I like to know that. Oh, and by the way, your regex should always be an approved whitelist, not a blacklist of unacceptable characters, just to be more specific there. Approved regular expressions. And then, of course, the developers mentioned something that I thought was interesting. Give us a definition of done. When is security good enough? When can I be good with this? When is it okay to ship this thing? If we aren't specific in telling them what is good, they're never going to be able to reach it, right? They can't read our minds. We have to tell them and be specific on what they need to know to be great at developing secure code. Tell them the definition of done. More on tools and integrations, and this is what they told me also. We would love it if you could just, help us out here, security person. do the research for us. I have a quick example. We were trying to integrate with an IDP, an identity provider. There were several options for our web app. It was like, hey, we want to use Okta or Auth0. Microsoft had one at that point. I forget what it's called at this point, but anybody know? Microsoft's Office 365, IDP, whatever. And there's a couple others. And they're like, well, we want to write code for our application. We don't have time to actually do the research on what the IDP should be. Why don't you, Naomi, go ahead and do that? And I'm like, okay, I can do that for you. So what did I do? I just pulled up a spreadsheet, went to each one of the vendor products, and I just said, here's some things I can compare for you. Here's the price. Here's how easy it is to implement. Here's the link to their SDK. Here's how mature their SDK looks. Here's how mature their community of developers are, right? Like, here are some things that I think developers are going to care about. And I did a comparison for them. And then I did a POC for each one. And I said, this one looks great. It was easy to implement. And I think we can probably roll this into our own product pretty quickly. What do you guys think? And they freaking loved it. They're like, oh, spreadsheet. Yes, I love it so much. And they're like, Auth0, this is the way to go. It had a great SDK, good price point, easy to implement, and a really, really good onboarding team. And I said, you guys, thank you for picking a really, really good solution here for authentication authorization. Yes, it was fun. So do the research for them. They absolutely appreciate that. They love that kind of stuff. Proof of concepts, like I said, kind of like the same thing, where if you're going to do research for them, you might as well see if it works in their tech stack, in their environment, in your environment. So another thing that is, as a security person, if you aren't writing or building security tools for your teams, maybe you should start thinking about that. If you're only purchasing tools or you're only using open source tools, that's a good start. I will say it's better than nothing, right? But if you aren't writing and creating tools for your teams that integrate with their tech stack, that help them get their job done, then try a little harder. Maybe just help them out a little bit more. Build something for them. And by the way, it's actually cool because you're writing software, you're writing code, and you're integrating in their environment too. You're seeing how software is built in that organization within their team. And then you can start seeing the pain that you as the information security professional bring to developers. Because if you yourself are a developer and you put these security requirements and these checklists and these gates in front of yourself, you can start testing to see how painful they are. So it's actually really, really cool to write. Oh God, Jerry, save me. This is killing me. This whole thing. All right, thank you. It's not gonna, all right, I won't stop. It's cool, I don't get paid to be here. All right, so third one here, test and tune out false positives. This is a big one for our developers. They actually really hate it if you're giving them something and just throwing it over the wall and you're not testing it or validating it, right? You guys are smart. You've seen this, you've heard this. But as a developer, and now this is me, when I was starting out in IT, I was a developer, I hated those security people because they didn't know what the hell they were talking about. They were like, here's a vulnerability. I'm like, it's not even a true positive. It doesn't even work in our, what's exploitable here? What is this? And they're always like, no, that's what the tool said. Our scan said this, it's a high, critical, medium, whatever. And I'm like, oh man, you didn't even validate this thing. So when you are giving vulnerabilities over to the developers, you better be validating that stuff. You better be checking it in their own code base, because if it's not exploitable, it's not something that they should be rushing to put out a fire for. Yeah? I feel like I'm just talking and talking. Testing and tuning out false positives. This is a good one too for any integrations and tools that you might use. If you're doing a POC or any tools like open source, put it in their environment. Like for CI/CD, if they're doing like GitHub pipelines, a lot of you guys are probably using GitHub, they're going to want to know if some actions are going to be good to use in their pipelines, right? So GitHub actions, you're going to do the research for them. You're going to look at the code and the actions themselves. You're going to see if there's anything bad in that code. You're going to do a manual secure code review based off of the checklist that you created, and you want to make sure those actions fulfill your security requirements as a security professional. And then you're going to say, if it does fulfill the requirements, these actions, all right, you can go ahead and use them, right? Or you're going to say, hey, it's not great. There's some security issues. I took a look at the code. There's a bunch of open dependabot pull requests. We probably don't want to use this in our environment. And then this is how you're going to win over some hearts and minds for developers. They're going to be like, okay, now what? You just told me I couldn't use this action for my pipeline, right? Now what? And they'd be like, aha, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to fork the repo, and I'm going to merge the pull requests for you, and I'm going to fix the security issues for you. That way you see, I get some head nodding, yes. That way you use the forked repo or action and not the one that's published that's probably 2 years old by now. So these are the kind of things that the developers are looking for. You're not just throwing it over the wall and saying, hey, no, this action isn't good enough. You are helping them. You are actively helping them by doing the security things for them because you are the security expert, yes? Now, if you aren't great at product security, if you're not good at application security, that's okay. You can learn that stuff. Everything is in a book or on a website or in a framework or in a tool. You can learn this stuff. And even though I was a developer, again, I have a computer engineering background with a master's in computer science, all this thing, like stuff that I learned in school does not 100% apply to the things I'm doing today, which means that I've learned every single thing that I'm doing today along my career. And if you can do it, if I can do it, so can everyone else. And this is what I'm trying to say here. Your tools and integrations must be easy to use. They must be easy to use. If they are not, your developers will not use them. Now, again, I will say I am, with Contrast, we are a vendor. And I will say a lot of our tools they're easy to use, I would say, for developers. But if at one point it breaks, if Contrast breaks, developers are not going to like it. So we've seen that too. It takes one time, honestly, one time to not work, and the developers just lose all faith in your tool, right? And you're like, no, my heart, I feel crushed. You guys aren't using our tools. And what's interesting with my role, I do security within a security company. It's cool because I get to use our own tools. So the first thing that I do whenever I see something that doesn't work, I like to just Slack whoever the operations channel and be like, this thing sucks. And I like to actually be that really mean customer that just says yeah, the tool doesn't work. But in my case, I like doing it because it makes our tools better for our customers. So if you are also in the security vendor space, think about dogfooding your own products. It's actually the best way to give feedback to your product team and to your customer support team and all those people who actually care about your software, like you. All right, number 2, fight for us, not against us. I like this one because it makes a lot of sense. I'm dying. Not only am I screaming at you guys, you're probably just like, oh God, and with this whole listening thing. Thank you, lady. I don't even know your name, but you seem really nice. Can we go out later? You seem really nice. You're so sweet. I love you. She's like, keep going, you can do it. All right, fight for us, not against us. It's all I hear, dude. It's all I hear. Really. Mental, right? It's all mental. All right. I'll continue. So fight for us, not against us. Our developers really, really, really want to be on our team. They want us to be on their team. If we are fighting against them, they're just going to feel attacked from all angles. They already have business priorities they want to fulfill. They've got product owners and product managers breathing down their necks. And now they've got security people too. Why not have a security team that helps them, again, maybe even writing and creating pull requests to help them fix security vulnerabilities instead of just throwing it over the wall and just say, hey, this security vulnerability in your code, why not give them the patch? Why not give them the fix? Why not give them the library or the function or the method or the class that actually helps them close that vulnerability, right? We could do that. Why not? We could just learn, be a resource for us. They say, help us do security well. I think you guys have heard this term. It's called shifting left, having that security mindset. Yes. So if you guys aren't doing threat modeling, secure architecture reviews, I 100% recommend that you do this. This is early on in the life cycle, in the development life cycle. As you are doing these, you are finding theoretical risks so that by the time implementation comes, you are not creating actualized risk for the company, right? So your software teams are going to say, oh, I didn't know that you needed to do input validation here. I didn't know we needed to check for this, whatever it is. And interestingly, you don't have to think that deeply. You just have to ask questions during a threat model, during a secure architecture review. You just think CIA, confidentiality, integrity, availability, and then non-repudiation. These are the 4 things that you can literally just keep asking questions on. Make sure confidentiality is kept up, integrity, availability, non-repudiation. Can you meet all of those requirements? Those are the 4 buckets that you want to start with. You can start getting more detailed as you go along. There's frameworks, there's different checklists that you can go on. The one I really like is the minimal viable secure product. It was created, I think it's called msvp.io or something like this, but it's got the standard checklist, a very basic checklist for product teams to do minimal security. Like I'm talking about minimal security. It's stuff like TLS 1.0 is turned off. You've got CSRF tokens on any forms. You've got input validation for cross-site scripting, SQL injection. Like those are the big ones. If you take a look at the OS top 10, SQL injection, access controls, those are the top two vulnerabilities that a lot of applications have, web apps anyway. So minimal viable secure product, MVSP, or minimal secure viable product, is one of those. Which one is it, Jerry? He's Googling it. Thank you. MVSP, thank you. Minimal viable secure product. That one's a really good checklist for your product teams. If you take a look at that one, you can actually see the buckets. You can be like, okay, you've got a content security policy, a CSP in our headers. That's really good. And here's some like basic header information that you should have. You've got your cross-site, you've got your input validation, you got, basic encryption turned on, stuff like that. That's really helpful for your product teams. Those are the kind of things your developers are looking for, are that very practical information for them to build and ship software securely and quickly. That is what they are looking for. Fight for us, not against us. One thing that one of my architects told me, he's like, hey, you do my security team, we do a really good job listening to them, because they want to feel heard. So during the secure architecture reviews, what we do is we ask the questions, confidentiality, integrity, availability, non-repudiation, and we're like, okay, what do you guys think about this? Is this good for you? Like, what kind of concerns do you have? Do you think you can meet these requirements? And the architects are always like, yeah, that's good, but what about this thing that we want to do? This thing, this outside service that we want to bring in, or this, we're in AWS, so what about this AWS service that we haven't used yet? Can we use this service here? Be like, you know what, we hear you. We want to do some research for you. We're going to take a look at the documentation for that service, for whatever thing that you're trying to integrate with. And we want to see if there's any huge vulnerabilities or huge security holes that we should be concerned with. Any confidentiality, integrity, availability, non-repudiation vulnerabilities with doing that thing. So during the architecture review, you're looking at each one of those components, yes? And you're taking a look at the data flows and all the different security controls within the architecture to make sure that it is right and it doesn't increase the risk of your organization, your security risk. And this is what you should be doing with your developers. You're getting their feedback and saying, is this okay? And they're saying, well, what about this thing? And be like, wait, hold on, maybe it's okay. We don't want to stop you from doing this thing. We're going to tell you how to do it securely. And they actually really love that. Instead of you just saying no, you can tell them how. I mentioned before that, they really love it when you tell them they've done something good. When they do something bad, you shouldn't be blaming them. They do something called I guess it's kind of like an incident response thing, but they have their own operations incident response teams, and they almost never do this. They don't blame each other. They don't blame when something bad happens. During a postmortem, they say, okay, we could have done this better, or this process failed us, or whatever it is. They never say, Jerry logged in the production database server and he turned something off, he broke something and deleted a table or whatever. Like, no, or dropped the table. They won't do that on the operations teams. They don't do that. They are all in one team. So why are we as security people? And if you do this, please don't. And if you don't do this, continue. You're doing great. But if you are blaming the developers for something that they did wrong, they're not going to trust you again for them to be transparent or be open to share problems that they have in the future, right? So if you, as a human, think about this. Do you think you're going to trust the person who is literally screaming and yelling or embarrassing you on Slack or in front of the whole entire company? You're not going to like that. No? And in fact, what you might do is you're going to start actively hiding security vulnerabilities from the person who's yelling at you. So you as a developer are going to say, well, the security team was yelling at me about this thing that I did. And by the way, I was just having a bad day and I just checked in some code that had a tiny little vulnerability. I was using MD5 for hashing instead of the thing that I needed to do, right? So they're like, okay, well, I'm not going to tell them again if I do something wrong or if I find something that's bad. I'm not going to tell them because I don't trust them. And that's because the security team has made them feel so bad about themselves in the past. That makes a lot of sense. As a human, I get that. Humans don't want to be attacked. They want to feel safe. It's like that whole psychological safety thing. And finally, this is what the developers told me. pick up a shovel and actually help with something. Like I said before, in our CI/CD, we use GitHub in our pipelines for part of our product. And the GitHub actions that they use, we have probably hundreds at this point. We want to tell them specifically which actions are approved. We've done secure code reviews on all of them. We've done literally checks for each one of them to a specific commit hash. So you aren't just saying this is the latest version that you're always allowed to use. It's a specific commit hash for that action that is approved for use in our GitHub in our pipelines. We've done this for them. Now they are secure to build software as quickly as they want because they know they are approved to use this stuff. It's going to work. It's not going to introduce security risk to our organization. That's what they want to hear instead of just being like, no, you can't use this action. Okay, what can we use, right? Like, okay, if it's not that action, we're going to fork the repo. We're going to close out the security issues. We're going to merge the PRs. Those are the kind of things security teams should be doing, especially if you're a good product security person. Picking up a shovel and helping, actually helping instead of just throwing over security vulnerabilities from your scanner and just be like, hey, this thing found 100,000 vulnerabilities. You got to fix it. Okay, how about you fix it, security person? If it's that easy, if patching is that easy, why don't you do it, right? Security teams, I know we're busy. We've got a lot of different things on our plate. But I'm telling you, if you take a look at the data, most of the root causes of breaches happen two different ways. One is social engineering. We've got phishing and all that good stuff. Everyone knows about this. That's actually like, depending on the study, between 50 to 90% of root causes for all breaches. The other remaining is actually web applications. Like it is the front door to the public internet for your company. If you have a public web application like a login page, that is unauthenticated and that is on the public internet that anybody can attack, right? So if you are there helping our developers, your developers, secure their publicly facing infrastructure, that is what you should be doing in the first place. Help them patch. Give them secure base images for their containers. They should be safe to innovate and build within an environment that you give them. So you aren't just saying, good luck, have fun, build things. You are actually giving them the things that they need in order to build, the building blocks in order to build securely. This is what they want. Number 3. Help us understand why. Why are we doing this? Now, you guys probably do this, you've probably seen this thing, like security questionnaires, right? Who here knows what a security questionnaire is or has filled one out? I know, I'm so sorry for you. I know, especially if you're in the SaaS space like I am, you are constantly looking at security questionnaires. Now, here's like kind of a tip that I'd like to give you as a developer. From a developer side, they don't want to be filling out security questionnaires, right? But as security professionals, we shouldn't be giving security questionnaires to other development teams either. So not even within our own teams, but with our vendors, with our partners. We should not be giving those things out because it's a waste of their time to the developers. Now you might have a risk team or a compliance team that would be better. But if you're sending these security questionnaires directly to the developers or to development teams, they will hate you. They will answer yes to all the questions. They're going to lie out of their teeth. They're like, well, actually, yes, we are SOC 2 type 2, right? Like they're going to just say all these things. Maybe not that. There's legal reasons they shouldn't do that. But they are going to lie through their teeth and they're just going to say, yeah, just get this off my plate. I'm going to just fill in yes for all the stuff on the spreadsheet and I'll continue throughout my day. Don't do this for our developers. They hate this. They want to help. Developers want to know why they're doing something. So if they're building something, they know why. They are building something to help the company. Business priorities, I get that. They're going to make money for the company. That's why they do that. But when we give them security things to do, they need to know why, and they need to know it's not BS compliance like these security questionnaires that we give out to our developers or to other development teams. If we're saying, hey, this is BS compliance, you don't even know if this thing actually is going to reduce any risk for our organization. If you say you follow this checklist from ISO 27001 or you follow this from NIST, CSF, or whatever, or tell me why the security control is actually important in our environment. Tell me why. If you can't tell them why, if you can't tell them specifically why a security control matters, they're not going to care about it. And you have to stand there and be able to back up your reason for creating these security requirements in the first place. But if you're saying we follow the NIST CSF, we're going to do every single thing within all these security controls, within all these domains and all these verticals, they're going to say why, and you need to be able to tell them why. If you can't map it back down to actualized risk within your organization, they are not going to listen to you, and they are actually going to work actively against you. And again, thank you, lady, for shaking your head. You agree with me. I love you. Meet me later. They're going to say, we're not even going to help you. We're going to actively hide risk from you, and we're not going to involve you in security decisions. Now, here's something that you can think about as in your daily life. How many meetings do you get invited to? Right? Think about this. How many developer meetings do you get invited to? Do you get invited to their sprint planning? Do you get invited to their incident response postmortems? Do you get invited to architecture reviews? If you are not getting invited, that means they do not like you. Thank you for laughing. It wasn't a joke. But I'm saying, if they don't invite you, take a look at your calendar right now. Go ahead. Take a look at half of you guys are on your phone anyway, not listening to me. Go ahead and just look at your calendar right now. How many of those meetings are with developers? How many of those meetings are with the product team? Because if it's 0, that means they don't like you, and that's a problem. They're actively hiding development problems from you, and you are going to have security issues in the future. Or, and this is my favorite thing, I didn't know that asset was online. I didn't know that IP address existed in our space like that. I didn't know we owned that thing, right? And that is the worst time to figure out that you actually have a vulnerability. It's like, oh my God, it's been in production for the past 6 weeks. I had no idea that this was a thing. It's because the developers don't trust you enough to tell you that they are releasing this thing. And if you don't know about it, how are you going to secure it, right? It's like the number one thing, asset management. You can't secure what you don't know exists. And everybody knows this. Developers, if they're implementing things and creating things and putting things out on the public internet that you don't know about, that is a problem. So go ahead and be friends. I'm all over the place with this, Jerry. All right. Be specific. Be specific. Be specific. I mentioned this earlier. Be specific here, not only about verifying true positives for them, but being specific on the precise vulnerability, the exact package class method, even the line of code, the exact risk if a vulnerability is unfixed. Do not just rely on CVSS. You guys, CVSS is broken. I will tell you, even 4.0, CVSS 4.0 just got released for beta. It is not great. So if you're just relying on CVSS scores, you are doing it wrong. They don't appreciate that. First of all, you guys know this. You're smart. CVSS isn't going to tell you business impact anyway. It's just going to give you temporal scores, environmental scores, and all these things and all these other factors that might not matter in the long run to your business. So if you're scoring something really high, like a 9.0 or above, if it's critical, and it doesn't even matter for the application to the business, like say it's a business application that no one ever uses, it's not on the public internet, whatever it is, 0 users, now you're telling your developers they must fix this thing. And by the way, if you're segregating your networks like you should, even though you have this broken thing on the public internet, it shouldn't be a problem for you, right? You guys should know this. Yeah. Segregate your networks. That's probably like number 3 on the root cause. If you look at actually the MGM one, that breach recently, that happened because of social engineering and lack of segregation on their networks, right? It's hilarious. Yeah, I think it's funny. Because it's like the basic stuff. You're like, how do you not know this? Like, you should be doing this stuff all along. How do you not know this? Anyway, don't rely on CVSS. And also, your developers really want to know this, but how does this vulnerability that you just told me, how does it actually compare to all the other security things that you've asked me to do? And by the way, if you have like a bug tracker, they're probably working on dozens, if not hundreds, of other things that you've told them to do. Pick up a shovel and help them prioritize and say, you know what, maybe this CVS or this vulnerability that we found, I just said CVSS, oh my God. No, this vulnerability that we just found with this rating because, we've used CVSS, we've used EPSS, we've used different scoring systems. We have our own rating risk methodology that we use internally. Based off of that information, we can tell you that is a critical. We need to fix this thing. Oh, and by the way, it's in production. We need to fix it yesterday. And that overrides all the other security initiatives that we've asked you to do, developer. So please go ahead and do that if you would. And you also say, and this is how much I can help you with. These are the things that I've done for you in order to get you across that line faster. This is what your developers want. Precise and specificity. All right, almost done here. Knowing how software is actually built. I alluded to this earlier. If you aren't developers, that's okay. That's okay. I'm a failed developer. Like I would say, I developed for 7 years. I checked in my first code as a teenager. I worked for the Army Department of Defense. And I would say I hated it. Like it was just so difficult. You have to do so much learning and catching, like keeping up with the languages and the frameworks and the technology. It was exhausting. I said, hey, you know what's easier than building software is actually breaking it. So instead of building software, now I break it. It's great. But what you could do is learn how to write software and how applications are actually built in the year of our Lord 2023. And if you can do that, your developers are going to love you. They're going to be like, oh, you know exactly how we do this thing, and you know how difficult it is to patch, and you know how difficult it is to actually make a simple change that you think is simple. You think a content security policy is simple to add? No, with all the layers and technologies, and thank you so much, it's not that simple. It's not just adding a CSP to a web server anymore. Thank you, lady. It's not. All right, know how software is built, understanding our culture. This is what they want from us. Know how we do DevOps at our company. It's not just development anymore. It's when they build something, they have to maintain it. They have to own it. This is the DevOps culture. They're continuously monitoring it. They have so much on their plates. And by the way, developers are the rock stars here. We are not. We are simply a service for them. So if we are understanding our role within that culture as security people, they will like that. They appreciate that. They say, okay, security people, you understand that you are not the rock stars here. You are not the main character. You are not the best person in the story. It is the developers. They are the rock stars. We are here to help them. Understand that. Understand your role here. They will love you for this. I am telling you. Getting hands-on with those CI/CD tools. Like I said, understand how software is built at your company. If you don't have CI/CD, if you're still building software manually, that's great. But you're going to still have to do your tests. You still have to run security tests. You still have to do end-to-end tests. You still have to be checking and scanning and doing all these things. If you can build it in within the CI/CD, even better. So do those automations, do those integrations, do those tests, all within your CI/CD, all within your pipeline. Give them the results that you have verified as true positives, and you give them as much help as possible. You say, here is a vulnerability that we found as we were running tests within our CI/CD. We have opened a PR for you, or we have created a security issue for you, and here's a solution for that. You are giving them step-by-step instructions on how to fix that thing. Oh, and by the way, even better if you tell them what they've done right. So if you say, hey, our security tests have found 0 critical vulnerabilities, and that's because you have validated input correctly, they love to see that. And again, that goes back to when you tell your developers what they've done well. And they love you for that. They say, oh, wow, thank you for not just pointing out the things I've done badly. I actually love seeing what I've done right. It'd be like, I was so close to writing something incorrectly, but I did it correctly. That's amazing. That's good to know. Thank you so much. That's the stuff they love too. Know our languages and frameworks. Again, if you're not a developer, you can learn this stuff. Here's the best part. You guys are all smart. Your eyes are security people. You can pick up a book. You can pick up a compiler. You can start writing code. It is not that difficult. If you guys, well, I don't think it's difficult. You guys don't think it's difficult, right? You can follow tutorials. You can learn. My child, he's 10. He's doing JavaScript, Java, Python now. Little kids can do this stuff, so can we. So can full-grown adults. We can learn this stuff. It is not difficult. You do not need a master's in computer science to do this stuff. Know our languages and frameworks. Frameworks are changing always. I won't even tell you which one we're using, but it's an older one. But even the older frameworks get updates, and they get vulnerabilities, and they get patches and stuff like this. But you should be knowing what your frameworks are, what your languages are, down to the code level. It's not just, hey, I think we have a Java mid-tier, or hey, I think we have a React front end. Like that's okay. You should know that stuff too. But from what, like specifics, what kind of libraries are involved in your builds? What kind of packages are you packaging up? What kind of third-party libraries are you using? What kind of vulnerabilities exist in those libraries, in those packages? You should know this stuff. Oh, and by the way, if you don't know how software is built, you should know how software is built. But there's awesome websites that actually tell you how vulnerable your open source packages are. And I work for one of those companies, and we do that kind of stuff. Software composition analysis will give you that information. If you don't know what SCA is, please look it up. SCA is your friend. You're going to help out your developers. SCA is usually good with true positives anyway, but you're going to help validate them, and you're going to give them priorities on fixes. It's not just everything is always critical. It's only the packages and libraries that actually have risk in them for your company. Know our tech stack, know our code base. If you're not in the code base every single day, or at least every other day, at least try. If you don't even have a login to the GitHub, that's a problem. At least ask for read access. If you aren't looking at the code and the repositories for all the major products that you guys release, at least get read access. At least look at the code. I mean, get familiar with it. You don't have to be freaking application developers, but you should at least know how to read code, yes? It is not difficult, I'm telling you. If my little kid can do it, so can all of you guys. All right, and lastly, almost done here. I'm dying. I'm literally dying. The developers want us to trust them. Asking questions, don't nag. Someone was at Tanya's talk yesterday. She said, don't nag us. We are just like professional naggers, application security people. We're just professional naggers. Please don't do that. Don't nag us. Help us by asking questions. Don't just tell us what to do. Be on our team, collaborate, don't dictate. Be a service for us. Give us space. Oh, and this is important. Give us space to make mistakes. Now, here's the thing. You're not going to give them production access to the database servers. You're not going to do that because you're smart. You're not going to be like, least permission, principle of least privilege, like go ahead and do whatever you want. No, you're not going to do that. You're going to give them only the access that they need in order to do their job. So if they're asking for something like, can we get a copy of the production database? You're going to say, no, but what we could do is obfuscate the database for you, put it on a segregated network for you, and give you read access to that. How does that sound? And they're going to be like, okay, that's a lot better. Like if they want to do performance tuning, for example, be like, here is an obfuscated database for you. You are not going to get direct production database access. That is a no-no. You're going to give them just enough access to the things that they need in order to do their job. So if they're making mistakes, it's going to be okay because you haven't given them enough rope for themselves to hang themselves on. You're only giving them access for them to play with the rope, instead of doing something bad with it. You are giving them only the access that they need in order to do their jobs and nothing more. Nothing more to hurt your company, nothing more to introduce risk to your organization. But give them space to make mistakes. You guys know this as security professionals. You guys are smart. But one of the only ways that some people learn is by making mistakes. Sometimes you got to fail in order to learn. Now, I will say, I have certainly failed in my career. I have actually gotten fired from jobs, and now mentioned this earlier as a security leader. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. My first ever security job I actually got fired from because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I thought as a security engineer, I'm like, how hard could policies be? How hard could creating information security program can be? I learned the hard way. Yes, I got fired from that job, and that's okay because I bounced back from it. The next job I did really well because I failed and I learned. And I think that's what our developers can do. If we give them the space to make those mistakes, they can actually fail and learn too. Just like me, just like you. If you guys have never gotten fired, good for you. If you have gotten fired, you probably know what I'm talking about. Those are mistakes that you can learn from. Those are lessons that you can learn from. And you know what? Those are great lessons for life. Like you are learning and growing as a human. That's amazing. That's like beautiful, like I'm here, I'm soul on this earth, walking this planet for 80 something years, whatever, hopefully more. Yeah, definitely more. I would say you're going to be making mistakes. You want to learn. Your soul is here to learn. So why not? Just make some mistakes, learn, give them a space to grow. All right. Almost done. 6 things DevOps wants from InfoSec. Really quick. Here are the 6 things. Please, we want to be empowered. Fight for us, not against us. Help us understand why. Be specific. Know how software is actually built and trust us. Please trust us. Because developers want to be great at security. That is a meme I created. I don't know. It's kind of cringe here. So help them be great. Help them be great at security. Thank you, everyone. Again, my name is Naomi. You can find me on Twitter, which actually I hate now, so don't find me on Twitter. And on LinkedIn. I'll see you guys soon. Are there any questions? And I apologize. I am physically dying right now. Yeah. Talking to the mouth. Jerry has a question. Talking to the mouth. It's a microphone.
Does it have a microphone? Oh, wow. That's cool. I've never seen this. So Naomi, if somebody wanted to you said learn CI/CD, right? Like have visibility over what that looks like, not just at the super high level, but kind of the process so you can talk to the developers. Do you have a recommended resource that would be like a primer or a great place to start to get that comprehensive view?
Yeah, for sure. So it depends on what pipeline you're using. So Azure Pipeline is going to have their own documentation, but I would go straight to the documentation site for that product, that service. So CI/CD for GitHub is called GitHub Workflows, GitHub Pipelines, whatever they call it now. But you can just go on their website, docs.github.com, start reading everything about it. They have security best practices. Every single website, every single vendor that does CI/CD is going to have that documentation. That's what your developers are reading every single day anyway. That's your go-to golden source for information as a security professional. You are going to get so intimate with that documentation. You're going to know exactly what secure best practices are. You're going to know things like reference architectures. If you're in AWS, I highly recommend AWS reference architectures. One of my favorite things to do is to just go on AWS documentation and just look at reference architectures on how secure applications are written. Now here's the fun thing. Some of those reference architectures don't have security controls at all, so you can actually fill in those gaps for the developers. It's actually kind of nice. So go to the documentation sites for those tools. They'll definitely exist. I promise you. Anyone else have a question? Yay, the friendly lady in the front. Throw it. Nice.
Is it working?
Are you a professional athlete? Yes.
So I want to follow on to that because I'm not a developer, but I ended up on an AppSec team.
Can you talk closer to the buffalo?
Yeah, I can talk closer.
Yeah.
I'm not a developer. I have a degree in anthropology, but I ended up on an AppSec team, and I experienced everything that you just said.
Nice.
And worked very hard to become the trusted security person on the team. But for the CI/CD pipeline, I think you have to use it to learn it, really. Would you agree? Like,
use it
is there a way to get in it?
I think I mentioned
like,
it
I'm not
earlier.
writing code, but how do I test it myself?
Oh, so here's the cool thing. It should be free for you to test it. So if you have write access to the, sorry, what?
No, I only had read access.
You don't have read access to the repositories or wherever your software is built?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm not a
okay. So
developer,
what I've done is I have my own home lab. So I've done anything from like just spinning up a honeypot in AWS using their free resources, their free tier. You could do the same thing with Azure. Azure is great. So if you want to just play with pipelines, I would absolutely recommend starting with Microsoft Azure. You could sign up for a free account and then play with their Azure pipelines. It's really, really easy. Here's a code project for you if you'd like. Write a Slack app using Node to pop up a form, and the form will be sent somewhere to your email, for example. You can write this. You can actually build it within Azure pipelines and have it deployed directly to a bucket where Slack can actually read from and like installs it for you. It's actually kind of neat. So you create a Slack app, Slack marketplace that you can do locally, and then your Azure pipelines can actually build the Slack app for you. You can actually set that whole thing up on your own. It's actually a fun little project. I did that with one of my interns, actually. He was a 17-year-old high school graduate. I told him, can you create a Slack app for me? Here's how you do it. And I walked him through the steps, and he did it in like a couple months. So it's possible.
Do you think that if your team is using something like Jenkins, you should have to would it help to do Azure pipelines? Or
so if you're using Jenkins, is it on-prem or is it the cloud? Jenkins.
Okay. And then I have one more question. Does anyone actually use Stride on a development team? Like if I come in saying, use the Stride model to figure out what we have to do for risk in this application, am I going to be laughed out of the room?
Okay, I like Stride. I actually met the creator of Stride, and you know what he told me? He's like, we totally made that up. We had no idea what we were talking about. Like, it's hilarious, right? So like we were back in the day before threat modeling existed. Yeah, they're like, we just like the way it sounded. Like I literally was talking to him. He was like, yeah, we created that when I was back at Microsoft, and we had no idea what we were doing. We just recreated this thing, but it's holding true in these days. Stride is pretty good. We use it internally at Contrast. It's good. But again, if you're just asking those basic questions of confidentiality, integrity, availability, and non-repudiation, that takes care of like your spoofing and tampering and RID, all that stuff like that.
It looks like this MVSP that you just mentioned actually could be more useful.
That is more helpful, yeah.
Okay.
That's absolutely more helpful, especially for public-facing applications on the web. That's specifically written for that. But if you're writing like client-server or you're writing agent-based things that aren't public-facing on the public internet, probably not as important.
Yeah. Does anyone else want this?
Question, lady in the front. Thank you so much, lady. You're so nice. Hi.
Hi. What are your thoughts on the security champions on the dev team? And
can you talk closer to the buffalo's mouth, please?
Yes.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on having security? That goes crazy. Having security champions on the dev and DevOps teams, and have you seen it being successful?
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, that's how I started in security in the first place. I was a security champion on the developer team. So this is how I got into security personally, is I took a course on it was just like SQL injection, like basic injection attacks. And I was like, oh man, I love this. So I became a security champion on the developers team. And then I was talking to the security team all the time. So one really good way of getting embedded into the culture of the developers is to have those security champions. So I agree with you. Yes, it is important to have security champions. And in fact, you can find your next great security engineer on the developers team. So if you guys are hiring managers, this is another thing I like to say, give people a chance. They actually do know a lot, especially developers. They are willing to help you. So if they actually show any inclination in doing security, like if you say, here is a security vulnerability, could you find an ingenious way of solving this quickly? And they do, they would probably make really, really good security engineers, and you should steal them, which I've done.
If that's a new program that's being established, how much of a training tooling do you think they would need right away to start?
How much tooling and training for security champions?
Yeah.
What's your goal, I would say, for your security champions?
For them to advocate to developers and speed up the testing process and actually want to work with us better.
Oh, okay. So basically how to make friends and influence people. Okay. So I would say for security champions, if they're already approaching you, you've done the hard work already. You don't even have to win over their hearts and minds. That's usually the hardest part. If they've been assigned as a security champion, that's going to be a little harder. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to do the human thing. You're going to have to reach out to them on a personal level and say, these are the things that we care about as a security team. I know we're on the same team, developer. You and we're on the same team. You use those psychological tricks, I like to say. Read a couple books on empathy and emotional intelligence. That's actually the easiest way on winning friends, influencing people, meeting them where they are. There's so many little tricks, I would say, but a lot of the learning will be on your end. And you probably didn't expect that. You're like, what kind of tools and trainings can we give the security champion? That's actually not the approach that I'd like you to take. Your approach could be to learn how to empathize with the developers themselves, learn what you can about their CI/CD, learn what you can about their language and frameworks and how they write software and how software actually works. Then they start trusting you, right? They're saying, oh, this woman, she knows what she's talking about. She has built software, or she knows how we build software. That's awesome. Now I'm free to tell her the things that I would like to tell her, which I probably always wanted to say anyway, because again, a good developer is going to want to write secure code. Yeah? Good. Thank you for that question. All right, I see the next round of people coming in, so I am going to close with that. Thank you, everyone. Again, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.